You're listening to the Night Demon Network. Go to nightdemon.net/subscriber to unlock more exclusive content.
Hello and welcome to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast. I'm your host Nesbit, and last episode we looked back at the end of 2011, which was a period that on paper looks like an uneventful time in Night Demon history, but we saw that during this time the current members and future members of Night Demon were extremely busy with their main projects. But all of that was about to change with a flurry of new material and activity as Night Demon begins to rise. This is Night Demon: The Early Years. So, 2011, after Night Demon's first show in May, the band gets extremely busy with their main projects. So Jarvis and his Heartbeats band, they release a full-length album and tour. Guitarist Brent Woodward and future Night Demon drummer John Crear are in the fucking Wrath. They release a full-length album and they tour America. Pat goes away to college, and future Night Demon members Dusty and Armand are kicking ass around California in New Liberty, who also just released a full album. Well, the next year would prove to be very prolific for Night Demon as the guys in the band, they gradually start to focus more and more on Night Demon as it becomes less of a side project and more a serious band. And it all starts when Pat Bailey, drummer of Night Demon, returns home. Here's Jarvis Leatherby.
So from that point on to the end of the year, right after Thanksgiving, I remember, again, me and Brent hanging out a lot more. And kind of talking about, hey, you know, maybe since we have some downtime here for the holidays, let's try and maybe we can get together. Pat's coming back for like a holiday break. He's going to come home and stay out here for a month or so. So we went back to Satellite Studios with Armand, and we actually did like a final mix on the EP. That was really cool because there were some things that, like the whoa parts and ritual, I think that we did bring back in. Now we sit and wait for the demon's call. Oh, come on, everybody, want it all. Get down to the ritual. And we just wanted one more pass through just because we did it so quickly, just to make it, you know, we didn't re-record anything. We just wanted to have a final mix where we, you know, now that we had months to listen to it, we just heard a few things that we wanted to tweak, just level wise, nothing really in the tones or anything.
Mixing of the EP, I just was doing my thing. Again, the band was not really that serious at that point.
Because I think at this point, we wanted to have it ready. I mean, we really did want to put out a record at some point. We did want to put this on wax. It wasn't happening at that point, but we wanted to have it ready to go. And so we went in and did that. And then Brent reached out to Pat and we ended up getting together. So in December, we did have a rehearsal, and that's when we kind of started bringing in some additional ideas, which was kind of strange, to be honest, at the point, because I vividly remember after that first show, both Brent and I saying, hey, like, we can never do a full length record. This is it. We're just doing this EP, and we want to be one of those bands. We want to be one of those obscure new wave of British heavy metal bands that they just put out a demo, or they just put out a 7-inch. They just put out an EP, and that's it. You never heard from them again, but it was like one of the coolest things you ever heard. And all this band needed was 4 songs, and you went back and listened to it over and over again. And there was kind of this mystery about the band, this mystery behind them, this mystery about their story. For us, I mean, God, with everything that was going on with the Heartbeats and everything that was going on with the fucking Wrath and all of my side bands and my nervous breakdown, I had a full-time job too that was an hour commute each way. I had a lot of stress there. Brent had a full-time job. He was managing a machine shop. All the guys in the fucking Wrath had full-time jobs. I mean, and nobody was self-employed at that point. We were all under somebody's thumb. We all had a lot of pressure in our life. Some people, had kids, but a lot of people, I'm not going to say we were working at total dead-end jobs, but I mean, I guess we were. I mean, some of them, a lot of us were working at record stores and music shops and stuff like that. And I don't want to call those dead-end jobs, but we knew there was no growth for us at the places we were at. And we were trying to escape by doing music. But the reality was, all the touring that all of us did as bands in those days were used strictly for vacation. I had worked at a job for so many years. Then they finally gave me 2 weeks of paid vacation, and that was my time to go do shows out of the area. But that wasn't enough. That's not enough to go out there and make it. You have to be it, right? So, and these other guys, I mean, who knows? I mean, going on tour for a month, some of these guys came home to no job. I mean, you have to quit your job to go to do that. That's the one thing about the United States. I mean, we've got a lot of great things here, but the system, as far as that goes, it's really rough on people that want to take time off from working. And, that's, we channeled a lot of that into Night Demon music, with our lyrics and our spirit of, just, working to live or living to work, right? So, yeah, I mean, tough times then, but I think my point here is Night Demon having some kind of completion, I guess you could say, with us just being satisfied with where we were, and not only having no pressure to do anything additional, but purposely not wanting or trying to do anything additional, I think was a breath of fresh air for us. It took a lot of pressure off of us when we were in all these other high pressure, open-ended situations in our lives.
So with Pat back from college and Brent and Jarvis back from touring with their bands, all the members of Night Demon are together again, and it doesn't take long before the creative juices are flowing. So December 3rd, 2011, the members of Night Demon, Jarvis Leatherby, Brent Woodward, and Pat Bailey, they meet up at the Jam Space for a rehearsal/writing session and come up with the bones of what would become a future Night Demon classic, Livin Dangerous.
But at the time, we just kind of thought, well, man, we've got this downtime and everybody's had a crazy year. Pat's back. Let's just go ahead and write some songs. At the time, I don't think these songs were as inspired as the 4 songs on the EP. I mean, I could tell you right now, Livin Dangerous is one of my least favorite songs. I'm sure we'll get into that when we break down the full song in a future episode, but, you know, I mean, it's kind of just like, there's still no pressure, so it's like, hey, just throw some riffs together. I kind of thought we needed like a rock and roll song. So that's the cool thing also like about the early times in a band. If you know which direction you're going in, you kind of want to add all the elements. Hey, we need a mid-tempo song. Hey, we need a ballad. Hey, we need a fast song. Hey, we need this kind of breakdown. We need this kind of beat. We need this kind of solo. So it's kind of like you just take all of your influences and just throw them in a big pot and say, hey, we don't have a song like that. Later on in your career, it's a little tougher because you can get the, you know, AC/DC or Slayer syndrome where you're just like, okay, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But, you know, I mean, those bands like that are very consistent and you know what you're going to get from them. You know, I mean, I think that's cool in their own right. You know, they definitely have a sound and a signature. For me personally, as an artist, I, you know, need to expand. So it's like we wrote Heavy Metal Heat. We don't want to write that again. We have that. You know, we in Night Demon, I mean, we always put our best foot forward. We don't really write songs that are not going to go on a record. We don't have throwaway tracks. If it's going that direction, we pretty much just stop and don't even finish the song. So, I mean, still to this day, I mean, you've original songs, you know, Night Demons only released 29 original songs in 10 years of being a band, but, you know, we feel that the quality is very high on those songs and you're getting something different from each of them that they stand up on their own. So moving forward, it's kind of like, you know, even writing song number 30, we just want it to be different than all of those songs. You know, if you're a Motorhead or something like that, I mean, sometimes those bands, you know, after 30 years in their career, they're like, well, let's crank out the Motorhead song through the Motorhead machine, you know, and some people are okay with that. And again, no disrespect to any, you know, the 3 bands I just mentioned, obviously legendary and influential, not on us, but not only on us, but on the rock and metal world in general. So I'm not criticizing them. I'm just saying the difference with us is that we just don't really feel that we need to do that. We don't really need to put out records just to put out records or write songs just to write them and kind of repeat what we've been doing to capture that again. We've already captured it. And so we have the opportunity to play those songs live.
So 2 weeks later, on December 17th, 2011, another classic Night Demon song is born. So Jarvis and Brent get together at Brent's house. They come up with parts of the song that would become one of my favorite all-time Night Demon songs, The Howling Man. These clips from December 17th, 2011 are just Brent and Jarvis in Brent's bedroom. They're writing these riffs and you can hear already the strong presence of the bass and guitar harmony that would become a trademark sound in Night Demon's music.
1, 2, 3.
So from December 2011, as we roll into 2012, I think we took a Christmas break. And then after New Year's, Pat was still here. And so we just went into the rehearsal space and we just hit it. I think we rehearsed a few times that first week of January. And we were just hammering out, like fleshing out Livin Dangerous and another new song, The Howling Man. Now, I didn't have any vocals yet for The Howling Man, or as we called it then, I can see this now. The working title was The Howling Man, a.k.a. Intruder. So what that really means is it wasn't The Howling Man till way later on. It took me almost a year to write those lyrics, actually, which not that they're very complex at all, and it's taken from direct influence from the Twilight Zone episode, but it took me a year to figure that out. At this point, January 2012, first week, kicking off a new year, we start writing these couple songs. And our idea was, hey, before Pat goes back to school, let's get into the studio with Armand and record these tracks. We did like an all-day session, and Pat laid down the drums. I did the bass. Brent laid down some rhythm tracks and some solos. I think we recorded most of it live. Same gear that we used on the EP, just our normal stuff that we had, basically the only shit we had, at that time.
So here's the early demo of The Howling Man. And it's kind of interesting to note, in addition to recording it, Armand actually wrote and played the clean guitar part on this. He came up with that melody and picking pattern, and he performs it on the recording. And it's yet another example of Armand being a big part of Night Demon's history, even before joining as an official member.
But yeah, so the song was originally called Intruder. And I think that was because we were trying to write a song about Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. And that song ended up becoming the track Killer off of Curse of the Damned, which we also did a demo with Pat in this session. So we were writing that song too. So it was basically 3 tracks: Livin Dangerous, Intruder, which would become the Howling Man, and Killer. So it's kind of weird because it's strange that the fact that we still called the Howling Man Intruder then. It had no vocals, but I know I was going to write something different about it because I'd had the vocals for Killer, and that was, Intruder Part 2, I suppose.
Killing just for fun. Killer, killing everyone.
A couple days later, we came back to record with Armand, and I think something had happened and he couldn't do it. We ended up just practicing at our jam space, which was right next door, just kind of messing around and just playing through the songs that we had just recorded and our old stuff. And this would end up being the final rehearsal, or the final time that we would jam. This was the last day that this would ever happen with this lineup, with myself, Pat Bailey, and Brent Woodward. One cool thing did happen, and probably the best way that we could end this, really, between the three of us, is I remember that afternoon. It was late afternoon or early evening. We were packing up and getting ready to go home after just jamming together all day. And Pat had mentioned that some friends were playing a show at a local bar out here called the Red Cove. It was a band called Space Panther and another band called Lazy Dogs. And these guys were cool, like Ojai guys. And, you know, they were into stoner rock and heavy metal and all the stuff that we were into. So it was cool. And for me, it was like, I didn't really know these guys too well at that point. And it was cool to go out there and, you know, just be more part of a local scene where some kind of metal was happening, because it really just was not around. So, you know, so we ended up going to this anyway. We ended up all driving ourselves to this bar, and, you know, there was hardly anybody there. I mean, really, we were some of the only people there, but the bands were cool. It was just, again, it was cool to be part of like a burgeoning scene. I mean, even though there was nobody there, I mean, shit, we were there. We were Night Demon, right? Those bands were there, and some of their friends were there. So, you know, you got to start somewhere with it, right? But yeah, because the environment was so casual and relaxed, and there was no pressure on these bands because nobody was really there to see them. They had asked if we wanted to come up and play a little bit, and I was like, whoa! Like I was totally down. And, you know, I didn't think the other guys would be able to, or not be able to, but would, you know, I wasn't sure where their head was at with that. But, you know, I mean, that's kind of just my personality. And I've been playing music for so long in so many different kinds of bands that, you know, I've been in those situations a lot where I just get asked to come up on stage and I'm right there, you know, or I do crazy, you know, uncomfortable things like singing karaoke through the years or playing different styles of music. You know, at that point, I've already put myself out there a lot and been in uncomfortable live performance situations. So, you know, I had no problem doing that at all. The thing is that Brent is a left-handed guitar player. So jumping up on someone else's guitar, on someone else's equipment is hard enough. But, you know, obviously most people aren't left-handed that play in bands. Left-handed guitars are hard to come by. But actually, Brent did have his Epiphone Les Paul in the trunk of his car. And this is like one of his earlier guitars. He rarely plays this guitar. It's kind of his backup. So he doesn't have new strings on it. It's probably not set up. But anyway, he was down. He said, fuck it. There's a reason that guitar's with me. So he grabbed that guitar out of his trunk. I remember our friend Chris, who sang and played bass for Lazy Dogs. We call him Crispy. He had a Fender jazz bass. And, you know, the drum set was awesome. Espa's drum set is totally like Pat's drum set, just concert toms, but he had like a silver kit, like Ludwig kit. So, you know, it was natural for us. It was a 3-piece band that was playing. So we just went up there and we played Lightning to the Nations, and we debuted Livin Dangerous to nobody or just to the other bands. It was kind of fun. Just, you know, it was inspiring. It was a song that we had just wrote, and it was a kind of a rockin' tune. And so we went up and did that, and we just played those couple songs, and we just hung out and had a couple beers. But this was the this was the last time that the three of us ever played together. It was the second time we had ever been on stage together in front of people. And it was the last time we were ever on stage together in front of people. And probably will be the last time forever. I mean, well, you never know. You never know. It would be cool to jam with those guys again. I'd be open to doing that. But that's just me.
Hey guys, Nesbitt here. If you'd like to support Night Demon and this podcast, the best way to do it is to become a Night Demon subscriber. Not only will you be doing your part to support a true heavy metal band out there really living it, you'll also gain access to a ton of extras. Bonus audio content, a subscriber-only merch store with rare items from the band's archives. You can stream never-before-heard demos and unearth live concerts from the live vaults. Communicate with the other Night Demon diehards on an exclusive subscriber forum, and gain early access to all press releases, album pre-orders, new merchandise, and a ton more. And another thing that I think is pretty cool is Night Demon will be donating 10% of every subscription fee to the Metal Cares Foundation, which is a charitable fund the band started in 2014 to aid those in our metal community. So head over to nightdemon.net/subscriber and join us as we make heavy metal history together as one. And on a side note, I'll personally think you're a grade A badass.
So at this point, we had all talked about it and nothing was going to happen with Pat. I mean, he had committed to school and we had pretty much known that it was over at that point. However, Brent and I still had a burning desire to release this music, at least the EP that we recorded. So shortly after Pat went back to school, we started to think about really what we feel is one of the most important things in metal besides the music, and that's artwork. So first, we were just really trying to figure out a logo. We were doing a bunch of hand-drawn stuff, and we were kind of kicking things back and forth. And of course, looking at general fonts and stuff like that. And it just wasn't clicking right. So Brent had asked a good friend of his, Ruben Perez, who's a fucking awesome artist and a former bandmate of his, to draw something up for us. And Brent kind of gave him the direction of something like, we both kind of decided on like Old English. Obviously, the whole vibe of Night Demon was Old English, quote unquote. I mean, the old British names, the new wave of British heavy metal sound, and, Old English font and writing, typically in Southern California, in recent years, or around this time, was totally adopted by like Latin gang member or homeboy culture, tattoo, prison art kind of stuff, but real Old English stuff, something old world, Old English stuff. That's what we were really going for. Something that, reminds you of a castle or sorcery or some crazy shit like that. That's what we were going for. An ancient evil, if you will. Actually not ancient, but I just had to throw that in there.
So Ruben Perez, a friend of Brent's, also a bandmate. The two of them were in a band named Destruction's End. So Ruben is an awesome graphic designer and freelance artist and illustrator. Now I have a quote from him, and he says, "Coming up with the Night Demon logo was mostly Brent's vision, but I helped bring it to life. He wanted something that felt nostalgic, but could also translate really well with merch, etc. An Old English typeface was our first inclination, so we started there. I drew it all by hand and added some extra horns to the logo. It looked so old school. Brent was really happy with the result, and so was the band. I'm really proud of it every time I see it now. I think what makes the logo so iconic is that it looks old school. I also feel like hand-drawn logos are way stronger and more original looking. Not just a typeface, some thought was put into it. The name also rules, so it's easy. So Ruben Perez, inspired by an old English typeface, he designs a unique hand-drawn logo for the band, in a way paying tribute to kind of the new wave of British heavy metal. In fact, if you look back to 1976 and you look at some of the original Iron Maiden gig posters, they used an old English typeface just for a little while before they came up with their iconic Maiden logo. So that's some obscure Maiden trivia in there. But Ruben Perez knocks it out of the park with this design, and I think it's an instant iconic classic.
Ruben did a really good job, and we went through different phases of this. There's definitely been an evolution of the logo over the first kind of, I would say, 3-4 years of the band. And really all that is just tightening it up. A lot of bands will actually change their logo completely after using the same one for so long. We actually had made a conscious effort to never do that. The only thing with the logo that has changed is it's gotten cleaner, I guess you could say, through the years. It's gone from something that looked totally hand-drawn. And if you look at the first version of this logo, I mean, it looks totally badass, but it looks completely hand-drawn. Like it's kind of if you look at the first Venom logo versus how that logo progressed, you never really notice it until you put them side by side and you're like, oh yeah, okay. So this first logo, we didn't really use much for anything. I'm actually trying to think of a time where we actually did use it. I don't think we ever officially did. Now, this is just a sketch, but it definitely has all of the guts and the bones of what would become, the iconic logo of this band and what's very recognizable for us. Now, I had been in so many bands at this point in my life that just like when I talked about choosing the name, how I wanted it to be symmetrical and how I wanted it to be 2 words and have the same amount of letters in each word, that was already accomplished. Now the logo is what had to be done. And this was something that we knew was gonna be with us for the entire length of this band. So it's like once we decided, that's it. We had to stick with it. We had no other choice. This is really hard to say right now, looking back in hindsight, because at the time we're still in the mindset, right, that this is not going to be not only a full-time project for us, but we're not going to be doing anything with this. Basically, in our minds, we were kind of just done with it. It was completed for us. Pat had moved away, and that was it. We kind of fumbled around writing another few songs that we demoed on top of the EP, but that was it. I mean, those may never get finished, and we were okay with that because we still didn't want to put out a full-length record. Our only idea was to maybe, if we did finish those 3 songs, to add them, to make a 12-inch and have the original EP on the first side and then these on the back side and kind of make it a full-length record. But still, it's only 7 songs, and, it still might have been considered an EP if it was under 30 minutes. So, and we would have been well under 30 minutes with the length of our songs. So it still would have been a glorified EP, and, those songs just had a different vibe than the original 4. So that was it for us. We just decided on that, but we did want to have an awesome logo, and we did want to have some killer artwork for that. So that's something that we at least kept alive. We did want this thing to eventually see the light of day. So even though we weren't playing anymore, we were still working on the image of the band as far as the logo went.
So with a cool logo in place, the band turns its thoughts to cover art. They had this EP in the can with plans to release it. They needed some killer, kick-ass art.
So now that we had a logo, or at least something we were happy with at the time, we now decided to start talking about the artwork. So basically the artwork for the EP. It's the only artwork we're thinking about right now. So Brent showed me an image that he found online. It was fucking amazing. It just blew me away. There were a few different ones that we were looking at, and there was one that I initially liked before this that had this image of this kind of like Grim Reaper hovering over a city skyline and walking through it kind of like, you know, Godzilla or King Kong or something. And, you know, at the time we were kind of like looking for a mascot or something as well, just to have on the cover of this or something cool. And, you know, I kind of thought that was a great one. This guy was he was a really old guy from Spain, and he had done a bunch of occult novels and stuff. That's the stuff we were looking at, like, you know, much like Sarah Thungal, you know, or Michael Whalen did the Moorcock novels. We were looking at stuff like that, 70s, more 70s occult versus 70s science fiction or fantasy. But anyway, so this first image that I liked, you know, we were trying to deal with the guy and his daughter was managing him, and we were just trying to do the right thing here and license it. And she just, you know, the time limit on it didn't fit with what, you know, we weren't going to be able to pay years down the line if this album gets repressed or whatever. So we didn't end up doing it. I was a little heartbroken at the time because I was really attached to it. But then Brent showed me this other one online it was this book cover of a book called Tanith, written by Jack D. Shackelford. So it's another 70s British occult novel. And the image on this cover just absolutely blew me away. It had everything you could want. It had all the elements of heavy metal. It had like a skeleton Grim Reaper type character holding a scythe, riding a horned goat with wings, and basically having a naked woman as his prisoner riding on the goat in front of him with her head pulled back and her breasts pointed in the air. It was, I mean, I don't know if you want to call it Spinal Tap these days, but it screamed Night Demon to us, and we just had to have this thing.
So this novel, Tanith, by Jack D. Shackelford, I'm holding a copy of it here. Not only is the book cover badass, the story itself is equally amazing. The full title, it says, Tanith, a nightmarish novel of demonic possession. And when you flip it over and read the blurb on the back, it says, they were creatures from another age, creatures of evil, slaves of Satan, who lived deep in the woods on Gift's Hill, a dying race which was determined to live and would live in return for a favor granted by their earth mistress, the lissome, sensual Tanith Rowan. Now, I haven't read anything else by Jack D. Shackelford, but this novel's pretty great if you love over-the-top kind of pulp fantasy horror. The first scene of the book is a pagan ritual. So right away you have a Night Demon tie-in, kind of in theme anyway. On the inside cover, it has a little blurb about the author, and it says that he's a practicing witch and his hobbies are sex and drink. So he's a pretty wild guy. Unfortunately, he passed away October 13th, 2011, so mere months before Night Demon discovered this book. And the cover of the novel is actually a painting by Chris Achilleos, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, who you might know if you've ever rented a VHS tape in the 80s of the animated movie Heavy Metal from 1981, the one with the Dia-era Sabbath songs on the soundtrack. He designed the classic cover of that film, and he also designed a few book covers for Michael Moorcock, who's an author who you might recognize. Some of his other book covers by another artist were used as the Sarah Thungal album cover art. And he has a website now with a lot of his art on it, but back in 2011, there wasn't really any public way to contact him. His website was launched in December of 2013, so this Night Demon art was a full 2 years before that.
The artist was a Greek guy. I forget his name, but we tried to contact him through many different sources back in those days, and He was just unresponsive to it. So we ended up just fucking using it. We were like, look, nobody's going to care. Nobody knows anything about this band, and they're not going to. At least that's what we thought. But I ended up contacting him in later years and sorting it out, which is nice. That's the right thing to do. We do the same when we cover songs with bands, and pay the royalties where they need to go. But this image, it really got me inspired to just do more with Night Demon. Just an image alone. And this was the idea. This was the art that we wanted with the logo that we had. And eventually these two things would come together to make up some of the very first Night Demon art ever. Well, at least the first Night Demon art ever released.
It's cool that this art, like this image, would really flick a switch in Jarvis's mind about the band. It would go on to be a live on-stage backdrop. You can see it in the first Night Demon video, actually. And it's really at this point where Night Demon becomes Jarvis's main passion, even if he doesn't really realize it at the time. So Night Demon is into 2012, has a new logo, a band identity, an EP recorded and mixed, and is becoming more and more of a focus for these guys, with new tracks being written and demoed. Unfortunately, they lose their founding member, Pat Bailey, after playing only 2 shows, and that leaves the door open for a new member, a familiar face from the Ventura scene, to join Night Demon. And that's where we're going to pick it up next week with Night Demon, The Early Years. Always be sure to check out the subscriber section on nightdemon.net. We have the original Night Demon logo sketches by Ruben Perez, the Tanith art, and the Night Demon art and banner that was inspired by it, and original demos of Livin Dangerous, the Howling Man, or Intruder as it was known at the time, and Killer. All that and more, nightdemon.net. Until next time, this is Nesbitt signing off.
Thanks for listening to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast. Head over to nightdemon.net, click on the subscriber tab, and sign up to access exclusive weekly bonus content. If you would like to donate to support the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast, you can do so through PayPal at paypal.me/nightdemonmetal. Additionally, if you have not already done so, please subscribe, like, rate, and review the show on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts.
All hail, Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast listeners. This is Dusty Squires chiming in to tell you about my brand new signature sticks from the London Drumstick Company. I've dreamt of having my very own drumsticks ever since I was a wee lad, and LDC made that a possibility for me. Founded in 2016 in London, England, the birthplace of heavy metal, the London Drumstick Company has trailblazed a path through the music industry and taken the drummer world by storm. When I met them for the first time, they knew their product was going to withstand the beatings of a Night Demon show. They took the time to work with me on getting everything just right. The balance and weight of my sticks are the same no matter what, and the durability is bar none the best I've ever had. I know my sticks will last through the set night after night. I'm truly honored to work with a company that caters to their players the way LDC does. Their innovation and attention to detail is what separates them from the rest of the stick makers out there. Their custom stick sleeves are unbelievable and really make the entire presentation complete. Wait until you see the design they came up with for me. It blew my mind and was a surprise to say the least. They have all kinds of amazing swag, including hoodies, t-shirts, drummer shorts, drum keys, stick bags, towels, face masks, practice pads, and much, much more. Even if you're not a drummer, you can be a part of Demon history and order my brand new signature sticks direct from their website. How cool is that? And to top it off, the London Drumstick Company are giving an exclusive offer to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast listeners. Go to londondrumsticks.co.uk and receive a 15% store-wide discount using promo code DEMONSTICKS. All capital letters, no spaces, Demon Sticks. DEMONSTICKS. I can't thank everyone there enough for the opportunity to be a part of their family and for them trusting me with their amazing products. See you metal maniacs on the road very soon. And yes, the wood chips will be flying.
Greetings, boils and ghouls. This is your comrade, the Crypt Keeper here, reporting dead from the sanctuary of the strange. Tonight's macabre myth is a fright-filled feature, one overflowing with monsters, madness, and magic.
Visit our website at monstersmadnessandmagic.com to stay up to date on all the dark dealings within the sanctuary of the strange. Enjoy the show.
Hey Metalheads, I'm Mark and I host the Metal Forge. Let me tell you about the show. The Metal Forge features the best underground metal from all over the world. We spend every week with a different artist with interviews, in-depth conversations, and most of all, the music. We also feature audience interactivity where you can submit your questions to the upcoming guests. New episodes are out every Friday at noon Eastern Time at metalforgeradio.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking Podcast, a non-genre based, all-ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
Okay, metalheads, you've been complaining that there has not been a channel that plays all of the heavy metal videos from past, present, and future for years and years at this point. Well, that time is over. Heavy Metal Television is back. HeavyMetalTelevision.net is the website. Go there. You can see videos playing 24/7, 365, all the time, all the best from the old school, the new school, and everything in between. Check it out, HeavyMetalTelevision.net. It is where the metal is.